No, obviously not every snake you come across in the wild is going to be venomous or even dangerous at all, like this little ball python here. But it doesn't mean that those snakes don't exist. Today, we're going to be going over the top 5 deadliest snake species in the world. Let's get into it. Now, when we're using the word deadly, there's really 2 things that could mean. We could be talking about what snake has the highest death count for humans, or most bites, or we could be talking about which snake's venom is the most lethal per milligram. So today, we're gonna break those apart. Now, if we're gonna be talking about which snake causes the most human deaths per year, by far, the world's deadliest snake is the saw-scaled viper. Saw-scaled viper is found in the Middle East and Central Asia and is responsible for over 5,000 human deaths per year. That is nuts. The venom of this snake is mainly cytotoxic and hemotoxic, which means that it's gonna prevent your blood from clotting, and it's also gonna break down your cells, resulting in a lot of tissue damage and your cells being unable to function and help each other. Now, when the saw-scaled viper bites down and releases that venom, its maximum yield, so the most venom that it's gonna pump out, is 70 milligrams. A human only needs about 5 to 10 to be considered a fatal dose. By nature, when this snake bites, it almost never releases anything less than 10 milligrams of this toxic venom. Now, luckily, there is an anti-venom for the saw-scaled viper. So if you're ever bit, you wanna definitely get to the emergency room, and hopefully they will have that on deck. If you're around the area where the snake is from, they'll definitely have the anti-venom. The big problem with this snake and why we see so many deaths from it is because a lot of people who get bit don't have access to an emergency room. They can't get to a hospital quick enough, and so because of that, the snake ends up winning. Next, if we're gonna cover which snake has the most toxic venom, so the most deadly venom per milligram of it, that is going to by far be the inland taipan. This snake lives in the semi-arid regions of Central East Australia and packs a huge bite. In fact, the maximum yield of venom from this snake when it bites down is 110 milligrams. That's enough to put down over 100 people from one bite. It's also 250,000 mice. Just in case you wanted to know that stat, one bite from that snake, from the inland taipan, could put down 250,000 mice. 250,000 of them. Why does it even need to be that venomous? Now, this snake carries a very, very strong neurotoxic venom. Along with the neurotoxic venom, there's also an enzyme called hyaluronidase. What this does is it increases the rate of absorption. Absorption. I can't say that word. Oh my gosh, I've tried 10 times. Now, what this enzyme does is it's gonna allow that venom to be entered into your body way more rapidly. Not only is this venom extremely toxic, but it also increases the rate at which your body is taking it in. So you're taking it in at a much higher quantity and rate than you would, say, the venom from the saw-scaled viper we just talked about. Now, neurotoxins and neurotoxic venom can work in a multitude of ways, but basically what they do is they shut down your cells from being able to work with each other, leading to paralysis, respiratory failure, and eventually possibly even death. They can also do things like make your blood clot so that your arteries clot up, or they can act like a blood thinner and make it so that your arteries and your blood doesn't clot up and everything just keeps bleeding and running through. One man was actually doing some photography and tried to take a photo of an inland taipan and got bitten. He survived, and he explained his experience as starting off with drowsiness, also experienced blurry vision, and I don't know how to pronounce this, ptosis? I feel like the P is probably silent, but it's the dropping of eyelids. He later developed dysphagia, the trouble of swallowing, dysarthria, the trouble of speaking, not being able to put his words together or think, everything just getting jumbled and slurred speech. And even after being treated with anti-venom, it still took 3 days of being in the intensive care unit before he was able to be released. But all of his symptoms were very common. Paralysis, trouble to breathe, trouble to swallow. Those are all common ways that neurotoxic venom works to kill. Now, while this snake's venom is extremely potent and deadly and it lets out so much at once, it's actually not responsible for very many deaths per year. And that has to do with a couple things. One, this snake lives in the rural regions of Australia where there really isn't a lot of people living, so there's not a lot of contact with people. Also, this snake isn't very aggressive. It does have a cousin, the coastal taipan, who is known for being aggressive and for attacking. But this snake is more so gonna swim away, run away, not gonna necessarily want to stay all essed up and defend himself. So as long as you're really not provoking this animal, hopefully you shouldn't be bit by an inland taipan. Don't go trying to take close photos in the wild. And up next on our list is the infamous black mamba. This is like the most famous, the most feared, the most everything venomous snake in the world, or at least I feel like it was a couple years ago. If you looked up a venomous snake, you were just gonna see a billion pictures of black mambas and how the second you get bit, you're gonna die. And it's not necessarily that wrong. So these snakes are found in the sub-Saharan deserts of Africa, and they're known for their high toxicity as well as their aggressiveness. When cornered or frustrated, this snake is known to rear up, S up, and start striking away, rather than like we just talked about the inland taipan, whereas if you cornered that snake, it'd probably try to run or hide. Whereas the black mamba, no. If you corner him, he's gonna fight back. You don't wanna fight with the black mamba. It's just, you're not gonna win. Now, some of the neurological effects that can happen to you if you get bit by a black mamba are things like drowsiness, trouble swallowing, trouble breathing, and those things you'll probably notice within the first 10 minutes, if not pretty much right after you get bit. Now, the thing about the black mamba is that if you're not an extremely healthy adult, it can take no more than 30 minutes sometimes for that venom to do its job. So with that, obviously, it is very, very crucial. If you get bit by a black mamba, you need to go to the emergency room right away. The one stat about the black mambas that stands out compared to the other snakes is that the mortality rate of untreated bites by a black mamba is 100%. That means that everybody who's been bit and not treated for a black mamba bite has died. Now, this is not a small snake by any means. A black mamba on average is gonna get up to about 7 to 8 feet long, and they can even get as long as 14 feet. This dude here is probably like, I don't know, 2 to 3 feet maybe. Imagine 14 feet. Hopefully, you're gonna see the black mamba. And again, this snake isn't aggressive, so it's not gonna come out of the woodworks and go and attack you. But if you happen to roll over on it, corner it, run up on it, get away from that snake because it will fight back and it will fight back hard. The coloration of these guys is a gray to light brown typically, which a lot of people think that this snake is jet black due to its name, the black mamba. However, it's the inside of the mouth that gives it that name. When this snake opens its mouth, you can really see the inside jet black, which is where it gets the name black mamba. All right, coming in at number 4 in our list of deadliest snakes in the world is going to be the Russell's viper of India. You guessed it. This snake has slithered his way onto the list because of the extremely painful bite that has been reported from this guy. The Russell's viper is known to have an excruciatingly painful bite, and due to its aggressive and defensive nature, it's not that uncommon to see them. This snake loves to make its home in the rice fields of Southeast Asia, and when it comes time for the farmers there to plant their crops and to pick them all up, we see the numbers of bites skyrocket. So different from the venom of some other snakes that we're covering here, this viper actually specifically has things called coagulopathies that are in its venom, which makes it so that your blood cannot coagulate and clot to help fight against the venom that's being pushed into its system. Because of this, it also means that excessive bleeding with this snake is very common. So once you start bleeding from out of your bite, it's really not gonna stop because your body isn't gonna be able to coagulate and block. And the tremendous pain that people report after being bit is largely due to the massive amount of venom that this snake will release into you once you're bit. The Russell's viper commonly yields around 300 milligrams of venom in each bite. 300 milligrams. Again, 5 to 10 is all you need for it to be considered a lethal dose. 300. That's so much. Now, luckily, like almost every snake nowadays, there is an anti-venom for if you're bit by the Russell's viper. The problem with it and why we still see some high death rates is because a lot of the people being bit are people out working the farms, and they're not at a place where they can get to an emergency room or a hospital quickly, so they end up getting bitten and they don't have enough time to get the help. Now, the mortality rate after being bitten from one of these guys and surviving is possible. It's not 100% like the black mamba, where if you get bit and you don't get help, you're gonna die. That's not necessarily the case here. But if you're an old person, if you're young, like very young, or if you have any sort of autoimmune disease or anything like that, the chances of you being bit and dying from one of these in the native region, if you're a farmer, it's fairly high. Now, finally on our list, coming in at number 5, is going to be the common crate. No, not a crate of bananas. K-R-A-I-T, crate. Now, this is a very toxic snake, which has a mortality rate of about 80% if you don't get treatment. The reason why that is so scary is because this snake, unlike the guy we just covered, when you get bit, you often don't realize. Now, similar to some of the other venoms, neurotoxic also works similarly here. So after the venom has had time to seep into you because you didn't know you really got bit because you weren't feeling, excruciating pain like you just got bit by one of the most deadly snakes on the planet, you might see things like muscle paralysis, muscle cramps, involuntary muscle movements. That can then lead to respiratory failure, the trouble swallowing, back to the dysphagia, back to the disorientation, the blurry vision, the sweating, the everything that then eventually leads to death. 80% of the time it leads to death if you don't get help. Those are not dice I'd want to roll. Now, the reason you don't feel some of the bites and you don't feel these effects until later than some of the other venoms is because of the presynaptic neurotoxins that are in the venom. So symptoms like muscle paralyzation and respiratory failure in most other snakes can take about 3 hours before you start feeling them. With this snake, with the crate, it could be up to 12 hours after you're bitten before you start experiencing the symptoms that actually are causing you harm. So if you're bit and you don't know it, once these effects start coming in, muscle paralysis, respiratory failure, trouble swallowing, anything like that, you need to go get help very, very, very quick, because there's a high potential that you're not much farther away from the end of the road. Now, the nice thing is that the common crate is a nocturnal species and typically is not very aggressive. The unfortunate thing, buddy's getting right in my face. The unfortunate thing though, is that in this region, a lot of people live in hut type places that don't prevent the snakes from getting in very well, and the people there usually sleep on the ground, which means if the snake gets into the house and curls up next to you because you're nice and warm, or you roll over on it, all of a sudden, you might be getting bit by this. And that also plays a part in why this snake makes up 18% of all medically significant snake bites around the world. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It means the world to me. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you found this entertaining, educational. I really enjoy looking this stuff up, so these videos are really fun for me. Leave any comments, any suggestions as to some other top 5s I should do. Maybe most venomous this, most dangerous that, just best pet, best beginner this, whatever it may be. Let me know in the comments. Again, thank you guys so much. Peace out, and we will let this dude here say peace out as well. Yes. All right. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.